What's up, everybody? This is Mike Rispoli with the LNBE podcast, where LNBE stands for literally nothing but everything. And I just want to wish everybody a happy Friday. And you might also be wondering to yourself, why the hell is there a second episode this week? This isn't normal. And you're right, it's not normal. Because you're probably just thinking to yourself, wasn't one enough? Like, who the hell does this kid think he is, thinking that we all want to hear a second one of these in a week? Well, for starters, I genuinely think I need the practice, let's be real. But also, I kind of want to dip my toe in the water and see what people think about me trying it on a different day. I don't think this is going to be a full episode, but here we are just trying to figure out some new stuff, seeing some new tactics. If you guys like it, if I put this thing out on a Friday, if you guys like it more on Tuesdays, I'm just trying to test the waters here, see what you guys are looking for. Also, if you guys really could just please write in or comment or do whatever it is that you can to get in touch with me to let me know what topics it is that you guys like or just like about the podcast in general, that would be really appreciated. Because also, the more that you rate and give more engagement to this, the better off it's going to fare. But guys, feel free to also tell me what you don't like as well. Like, what topics do you absolutely hate that I talk about? But also, you guys can tell me what you just don't like about the pod in general. I am more than open to hearing what you guys would want to suggest as to how you think that I could make this a little bit better for you guys and make it more enjoyable for you to listen to. It could be anything from, I didn't like the way that you said this. It could be, I don't like your take on this. It could be anything. So if you guys do have something that you want to write into me about, you can email me at lnbemedia@gmail.com, or you could even just send me a DM on my Instagram or even my TikTok, which you can find me at the LNBE pod. And it would also greatly be appreciated if you could also continue sharing and doing whatever you got to do to help spread this if you guys do enjoy it. Because the more work that you also put into this, the more it's also going to help grow. So it's all kind of a team effort here. We're all kind of in this together. I think I mentioned that before. I mean, in general, I also just want to talk about more topics that you guys are interested in, not stuff that I think, oh, this might be something that they might want to hear me babble about this week. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know how you guys would feel about this, but if I do get comments or write-ins, if you guys have a reaction to something I've said, if you guys want, I can read those out. Now, I won't use your names. If you want to give me like a pseudo name, if you want to let me read off of your handle or something, let me know that ahead of time. But this way, it can also maybe start a discussion on some of the topics that I talk about. But also, considering the fact that this is going to come out on a Friday, I hope everybody's week wasn't too bad. But what I genuinely hope is that nobody scheduled any late meetings on your Friday. Because is that not the absolute worst? Is when your boss or somebody, whoever it is, schedules a meeting on a Friday at 4:30, and you know it's always going to be one of those meetings that could have just been an email. It's a 30-minute meeting that turns into an hour. So now you're staying late when initially you wanted to just try and scoot out early because that's what the boss always does. So you're like, if I leave a couple minutes after he or she does, maybe I'll be able to scoot out without getting noticed and I won't get dinged for it. Like, hey man, I'm just trying to get my weekend started here too. Like, come on, let's go. But then the absolute worst isn't just the late meeting on a Friday. It's always because there wasn't an email answered earlier in the week or a call made or whatever the situation is. And because people above you can't seem to manage their time, now it becomes your problem and it's always something that's due on the following Monday. So now you got two options. You either got to stay late on a Friday, which nobody wants to fucking do, or two, you got to go in on the weekend, which is also not ideal. I'm sorry, I thought that having good time management skills was a necessary aspect of office culture, but apparently that doesn't apply to you. But then what? You gotta do it because they're the boss and they said so, and that's your livelihood on the line. So now you're just kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place of, I don't want to do it, but now I'm kind of forced into doing it, or you just automatically start going on Indeed and you just start looking for new jobs because you're just so fed up with it, just to become a victim of what is corporate life at that new job, and it's just rinse and repeat. Actually, you know what? This makes me think of a segment idea. What's the worst meeting that you guys have had late on a Friday? Or what's the worst thing that your boss or manager has done to you late on a Friday and it's affected your weekend because of it? Because that happens way more often than I think anybody's willing to admit. It actually kind of reminds me of that meme I saw where it's like, instead of having to bring your kid to work day, we should have a bring your friend to work day so they get to like see where all the trauma comes from. But I actually looked something up, and according to Forbes.com, this is kind of wild. 69% of people say that their managers had the greatest impact on their mental health, on par with the impact of their partner. That is crazy. But you know what? If any of you guys have seen How I Met Your Mother, it kind of makes Barney's like circle of screaming theory kind of accurate. Because it's like, what did he say? It was like, Arthur's boss's boss screams at Arthur's boss. Arthur's boss screams at Arthur. Arthur screams at Marshall. Marshall comes home and screams at Lily. Lily then goes into school, because she was a preschool teacher, and screams at one of her students. Then the student goes home and screams at her father, Arthur's boss's boss, thus completing the circle of screaming. But I think it's so true, because if you have a really bad day of work, it really can affect your mood when you go home. And who do people generally take out their issues on? This is something that I have a problem with myself, is you tend to take out your inner like issues out on the people that are around you, because you can't do it to your boss, because if you start going at your boss, you're just going to automatically get fired. Or hey, maybe if you're going at your boss in another way, it could still end up getting you fired, because you shouldn't be dating your fucking coworkers. You don't shit where you eat. But how great would it be if you actually like did have another job lined up, and your boss, you were on your 2 weeks notice, and your boss just did something that just pissed you off, and now you had your chance? How would you do it? What would you do? How would you say it? Would you scream? Would you just be passive aggressive? You know what I think I would do? I think I would just fuck with them. I think I would just like kind of make their job just a little bit more inconvenient. Like I would maybe hide their staples. I would make sure that they only have pens with no ink. Because if it's one thing about me, everything is about convenience. Now that's a problem with me in my dating life. But I always think about like how I can do something more efficiently. And I think that's how managers also think. So if you could just kind of like make their day slightly an inconvenience. I remember once when I was in college, my roommate just pissed me off. And there was one night where he wasn't in the dorm. So I rearranged his dresser drawers. So I don't remember how it was, but if his underwear and socks were in the top drawer, then I moved them to the third drawer, and whatever was in the third drawer, I put to the second drawer. So like it just kind of made him glitch for a bit, and it slowed down his day. Like it kind of fucked with his routine just a little bit. Because honestly, what is worse than being inconvenienced? Like that's why we all hate traffic. Because traffic is an inconvenience, and it makes no sense why there's traffic, and you know why there's traffic, unless there's an accident. But even still, it's because people are fucking nosy. People just want to see what's going on. Now, if you just happen to drive by while it happened, and you just happen to witness the accident, and even then, you're going at 65 miles an hour, it's just one of those things where it's just like, oh shit, I guess that happened. Just see that? You're not even witnessing it. You're not seeing what the true damage is. By the time that there's already traffic, the cars are already wrecked, the people are already in the ambulance, you're not going to see anything. So what is it? Like, just keep driving. Like, it doesn't affect your day. It affects those people's days. God forbid, I hope they're okay. But why do you need to know? Or the other reason there's traffic, there's really 3 reasons why. The other reason there's traffic, though, is because you had that one asshole who's driving way too close and they stop short. Now I gotta stop, which causes the person behind me to stop, and it just piles up. Or the third reason as to why there's traffic is because there's construction and then nobody's down there pouring tar. So they're just blocking off all the friggin' lanes for what? For nothing. Like how many times are you driving on the highway and it's like, oh, construction ahead, and nobody's there. There's not even a truck in sight. But meanwhile, for some godforsaken reason, a 3-lane highway is down to 1. Meanwhile, the other 2 lanes don't even have a pothole on them. So it's like, what are you guys working on? Oh my gosh, I would love to work for the state. I would love to work for state construction, because apparently you literally just get paid to do nothing. Working state construction on highways is the equivalent to OnlyFans chicks. Like, that's gotta be it. You just get paid to stand around and do nothing but show yourself. But I think the actual problem as to why that happens is because all the construction happens at night when nobody's driving. So it's safer for the construction workers, but the problem is they don't clean up their shit when they're done with it. So then we're stuck with the aftermath. In friggin' Connecticut, at least in my area, they've been working on the highway on 95 for the past 6 months. 6 months. And it's caused nothing but... We're a commuter state. Nobody knows how to fucking commute. So traffic in this godforsaken state is already awful. And I've been driving over the same rigid-ass sections of the highway for the past 6 months for no... I'm like, it's been 6 months. You couldn't fill this part in yet? Like, what are you guys doing? And it's like, the only person who actually is working is the one who's actually directing traffic. But it's like, guys, it's down to a 1 lane. I think we all fucking know where to go here. I just don't have the balls to do it. But what would actually happen? Because 90% of the time, the road is not being worked on. So what would happen if somebody just like snuck through the cones and just tried to get off that one exit? Because that's the other problem, right? That exit's blocked off. Now you got to go like 2 or 3 exits down to get to where you need to be, to turn around. It's just a nightmare. So what actually happens, because I actually did see somebody do it, cop pulled them over, but like, do you get a ticket for that? Do you just get a warning? Can you just play dumb? Like, oh, sorry, I just saw the opening. Because sometimes they will have that where it says like exit and they kind of like redirect you to like go through the lanes to get to the exit. So can you just play dumb and just say, oh, sorry, I saw the opening. I thought I could take it. I don't know. I don't know if that would work. Don't take my advice on that. I'm an idiot. I'm just thinking out loud here. I have no idea what the hell I'm even talking about. But if I have any cops listening to this episode, you gotta write in and tell me what the punishment is. Like, is it points on your license? Is it a fine? Like, what is the actual ramification? But then, you know what? That would just lead to another inconvenience, because then you're gonna get a ticket, and then they gotta drag your ass into court. You're gonna go and fight it, because who doesn't go and fight their ticket? And 90% of the time, the cop doesn't even show up, so you just kind of, like, get a slap on the wrist, or depending on what it is, they just, like, they void the ticket in general. I've only gotten 2 tickets in my life. Both were for speeding. And the first one was 100% my fault. I was going 50 and a 30. I shouldn't have been doing it. But in my defense, it was just a really bad area because it was an off-ramp that leads onto an on-ramp. So you kind of had to pick up speed or else your car was going to get fucked. So cop was sitting right there. He got me. And at the time, I was living in Rhode Island, so I had out-of-state plates, so I was just an easy target. Then the second time actually really wasn't my fault, because I was actually driving to Boston to go see my friend. Oh, man, I want to say this was probably 5 or 6 years ago now. Wow. But yeah, I was on my way up to Boston, and I think I was on the Mass Pike, and I was in the middle lane. I moved over to the left lane to pass somebody, and because I was passing him, I was going 80. It was a 65. So I was more focused on the car in front of me than the cop, who was kind of tucked away in a brush area. So as I zoom around the guy, cop pulls out, gets me. And it was so funny because he pulls me over and he does the standard cop thing. Do you know why I pulled you over? No, I don't, officer. What could you have possibly pulled me over for? He goes, well, I got you speeding. I got you at this. I'm like, oh, can you show me the radar? And he pulls out the radar. I'm like, okay. And obviously, I couldn't really deny it because I was the one passing, so I was the one going faster. So I'm not going to try and like play dumb and argue with the cop. It's the last thing you want to do is argue with a cop. Rule number 1, you don't fucking argue with somebody with a gun. So he just goes, yeah, the main reason why I pulled you over is because traffic is starting to pick up and you just really can't be going that fast. And I actually look out my window and I just see all the cars zooming by. And I look back at him like, you want to try again? And then he goes, well, it's starting to rain. Roads are going to get slippery. I'm just trying to make you safe. I stuck my hand out the window. And I'm like, you want to try for a third time? And he just goes, just drive slower. Just goes to his car. Like, Like, gee, thanks, officer. You're 0 for 2. I'm only going with the speed of traffic. I'm actually doing the legal thing, passing the guy in the left lane, and it's also not raining. Oh, dude was just on a vendetta that day, trying to get that quota. And it really does kind of beg the question, because if the quota does matter, if that truly is a thing, because I did talk to one cop who said that the quota is just non-existent, like we pull you over, we pull you over. But if the quota is legit, then why wouldn't the cop show up to the court date? Like, is it just a matter of how many tickets you give out, or does it also depend on how many tickets are legitimate? Because if it's voided, doesn't it, like, disappear? I don't know. Because I feel like at that point, that's giving the cop way too much power with traffic laws, and then they could just pull you over for anything. I mean, I remember one time, my buddy and I were driving, it was late at night, and my friend just happened to turn on his high beams by accident. And even though it wasn't intentional, in his defense, it actually was a really dark road. It's not like there were street lights that could help us, like, see anything. And also, there was nobody on the road, so there was also no oncoming traffic, so it didn't even matter. So he put on his high beams, and the cop just decided to pull us over for that. Now, granted, the guy let us off with a warning. The other thing was, I think in the cop's defense, was because it was late at night, I think he also wanted to see if we were drinking, which we weren't. So at that point, the cop was actually just doing his job, and he actually did do the right thing by pulling us over, because if we were drinking, if we had been drunk, that would have been disastrous. I went on a whole tangent about that, 3 weeks ago when I was talking about those hockey players? Oh, speaking of, so since Ethan, and the only time I mentioned this last week, the only time I mention a name is when somebody's on the pod, because now at this point they've been exposed. Unless you guys want to write in, hint, hint, wink, wink, and again, we can just come up with a pseudonym, or you can give me some other form of how you want to be known as. But I was talking to Ethan, because he's in law school, and when I talked about how I thought that the drunk driver who hit those hockey players and ultimately ended up killing them, I said that I think that driver should now be responsible for the child support of the hockey players' wives. Because from what I know, I haven't really looked into the story any further, but from what I do remember is at least one of the wives was expecting a child. And Ethan actually said that is a thing. It's just done in like a civil court or a civil suit or something like that. So turns out that I was actually on the right track with that. I had no idea that actually was a thing until he told me. So I'm actually glad that there is some justice that's served in that regard. But you know what? This whole thing actually makes me want to ask you guys, like, what's your worst getting pulled over story? I don't really have that many. I've literally told you the 3 times that I got pulled over. If there's any crazy stories or reasons as to why you got pulled over, and tell us, like, what happened in the aftermath, that would be great. Also, you know what? What's one of the top ways that you can get out of a ticket? Because out of the 2 tickets I got, the only reason I didn't technically get the first one for speeding was because I went and I fought it, so they just wiped it away. So if you guys have any advice on how to actually not even get a ticket and just always get let off with a warning, that would be great. I've always heard that humor works, but I don't know if I really want to play that game, because sometimes you just get the angry cop and he doesn't really have a sense of humor, and he's just like, I'm sick and tired of this shit. And then what you thought was like a little harmless joke or a harmless whatever ends up with you in cuffs. So I don't know. Hell, even if any cops have any advice on what to do and how to get out of a ticket, I would be more than happy if you guys wrote in and let us know. I think we'd all be happy to hear that directly from the wolf's mouth. Oh, this is what the cop told me to do. But guys, if you do take some of the advice that people give, don't just be like, well, the guy in the podcast said this would work. I'm not responsible. I'm just thinking out loud here. I have not given any actual advice. This is all other people. So blame other people for your misfortunes. Oh, just like life. Nothing's ever your fault. It's always somebody else's. But in corporate life, that's just called delegating. Oh, well, it's not my fault because they were supposed to do it. All right, whatever. All right, we're actually almost at the 20-minute mark. I actually was not expecting to even do 20 minutes. This ended up being a full episode. Please let me know if you guys prefer it on Tuesdays, if you guys like it on Fridays. Maybe you guys like this format better, where I talk sports or whatever on Tuesdays. And on Fridays, it's just kind of whatever. So, guys, let me know. I'm more than open to hearing what you guys like and what you guys don't like. But also, with that said, guys, please write in. Again, you can reach out to me on lnbemedia@gmail.com. You can also find me on my Instagram and TikTok. I also have been trying to do a little bit more with posting on my Instagram and my TikTok. So hopefully you guys are seeing that, sharing it. If you guys like it, let me know. Comment on those things to help boost it. And again, just continue to share, comment, like, subscribe, and rate the podcast to let me know if you guys like it. And with that, I hope all of you guys have a fantastic weekend. As of now, for me, my plans are just the equivalent to whatever's in my head. I got nothing. Hopefully that's not the case with you guys. But alright, I hope all of you guys have a fantastic weekend. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting. And we'll catch up again on Tuesday.